and welcome to Star Stories 2021, where we celebrate true stories of life at TXST. I'm Rasika Gesti, I'm the podcast editor at the University Star, and it is my pleasure to be the MC for this event. Civil rights activist Maya Angelou once said, "There is no greater agony than keeping an untold story inside you." And that's why today, 4 of our phenomenal speakers are using this platform to free themselves up from agony and share their untold stories with us. I would say that we should consider ourselves lucky and honored that they are trusting us with their personal and intimate stories. So let's give a round of applause for all the speakers tonight. It's time to ask the first speaker to come and give us an inspiring story. How many of you all know about Walt Disney? Obviously, because Walt Disney was the creator of Mickey Mouse and also the founder of Disneyland. He once said, "If you can dream it, you can do it." And I think our first speaker firmly believed in it, and that's why he was able to turn his dream into reality. I'm not going to tell you what his dream was or how he did it. Let's just hear it from him. Please invite Dr. Claude Bonazzo-Romaguera, our first speaker. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you, and thank you for having me and being a part of this venue and this event. One of the things that really struck me before I even start in my story is how much connection in this short period of time I've been able to establish with these 3 other individuals who are going to share their stories. One of the people here is actually a former student of mine in Intro to Sociology. And then I have another gentleman here who has struggled with disabilities. One of the major reasons why I came to this university, right, is to have a supportive network, right? And then Kiara, she stayed at Blanco Hall, and when I was my first year of college, I stayed there as well. So it was kind of interesting just to see how the stories came together. Anyways, a little bit about me. I'm originally from San Juan, Puerto Rico, or actually Atorrey. Essentially, one of the reasons, part of my life was living in Puerto Rico and part of it here in Houston, in Texas, in Austin, right? So one of the reasons I came here to Texas State was largely because I was recovering from a brain tumor. And one of the things that I struggled with was with memory and issues of just doing schoolwork, right? So I had, right after my brain tumor and my surgeries and all my treatment, I went to HCC, Houston Community College, just to test out to see if I can go back into school. And I did pretty well, and then one day I was thinking, we were trying to find a university that I could go to, and my aunt suggested Texas State University. She says, "Oh, well, this is a great campus, it has a river going through it, and it's a great deal of hills, it's a beautiful kind of university," right? So I was like, okay, well, I'll go check it out. And so, the reason why I came to this university back then, it was about 23,000 students, so it's much smaller. So I had what I really needed in order for me to be successful, is to have a connection with my professors, right? And to make sure that my accommodations are met so that I can be successful. I started originally, my first major was mechanical engineering. Complete waste of time. Once I got to math, it was just like, oh, nope. And then when I came back into the university here, I started my degree in business administration and marketing. Now, I was taking the classes and it was like, I'm only learning how to take people's money. And sure enough, in an Intro to Fine Arts class, I met my wife. And we started going to the same, and I kept asking her, can we go study together? Can we go study together? She kept saying no. Eventually we went on a date, and we've been together for 22 years. And it started in an Intro to Fine Arts class, right? On top of that, she was the one that suggested to look into sociology. She's like, I don't think of you as a salesman. I think of you as something more than just wanting to take people's money. So she said, go check out sociology. So then I went and took the intro to sociology course, and I fell in love with it. And I was like, after all the experiences of overcoming a brain tumor, surgeries, chemo, and radiation, I was like, I don't want to just, have an experience where I'm just going to learn how to take people's money. I want to do something with my life, right? And so then I changed my major, and the first thing out of my dad's mouth was, what the hell are you going to do with sociology? And so then I changed my major to a Bachelor of Science in Applied Sociology. I graduated magna cum laude. I loved the department of sociology so much. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get my master's as well. So I got my master's because of my supportive environment, right? They believed that even in terms of my disabilities, I could still be successful. And in my graduate year, I was nominated and awarded the Outstanding Graduate Student of the College of Liberal Arts, right? So they were essentially kind of motivating me, like, regardless of my disabilities, regardless of my experiences, you can still be successful. So I graduated with my bachelor's in 2001, and then my master's in 2004. And because I had such a wonderful experience, I made it my dream and my goal to come back here and teach here, right? To be part of the community that was really incredibly supportive of me when I was here, right? It's like, I want to give back to this department, I want to give back to the students as well. 17 years later, in 2019, I started teaching here, right? Before that, I worked at the University of Texas School of Nursing with homeless adolescents and school-aged children. Then I worked with speech pathologists. And then I was like, oh, wow, I'm doing all this kind of research. Why don't I get a PhD? Oh my gosh, big mistake. Essentially, a degree that's supposed to take 6 years actually took me 8. And part of that was because I had 3 muscle eye surgeries where they cut the muscles in my eyes, reattached them. Then I had 5 years of vision therapy, 2 brain surgeries because my shunt failed. And then my mom developing breast cancer, then lymphoma, then dying of that. And then my grandmother dying. And then my dad ending up in the hospital for 3 months. So the list of stuff was just piling on. But I still kept that dream in my head. I was like, I don't care. Even though I'm struggling through this, I'm going to do it, right? And I didn't get into UT the first year I applied. I got rejected the first year. And I was like, okay, still, as a person with disabilities, I'm going to use a different door. And so I met with the graduate coordinator, and they said, okay. Why? I was like, why couldn't I get it? Why was I not chosen? And they essentially said, well, you don't have the qualifications, you don't have the scores, and da-da-da-da. And then when I told her my story, she said, oh, I'm going to connect you with this and this person, right? So then I applied the second year and got help in terms of writing my narrative, and I got in. And so through that new year, through those 8 years, I had a newborn child, living with a disability and struggling with, and wearing these really goofy glasses because I actually see stuff in double. Like, part of my life I see most in double, right? And so all these things, despite of that, I made it back, right? I graduated, and then I started teaching at ACC, and so one of the things that I did was contact the former chair of the department and say, hey, can I teach a class? Can I teach a class? Can I teach a class? And then she left, and now she's an assistant dean in the College of Liberal Arts. And then, so the new chair, I contacted them and said, hey, can I teach a class? Can I teach a class? And then one day, he emails me and said, look, there's this one opportunity where you can teach for an entire year, and you'll have a contract for an entire year to teach. But it's not guaranteed that you're going to be, that it's going to be a stable line and it's going to continue, right? And so I jumped, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And I went and I made the jump, and then here I am teaching at Texas State University. I moved to Kyle earlier this year, and essentially right now, I'm living my dream every day. And the first day of class that I teach my class, the first thing I say is, this is my dream job, and you are essentially part of this dream. And I thank you for showing up to my class and attending my class. And it's like, I'm completely invested in teaching you what I need to teach you, but also supporting you along that journey, right? And so, I'm living my dream. I'm a lucky person to be able to come back here and be a part of Texas State. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Claude, for such an inspiring story. It's time we move on to the next speaker. How many of y'all love music? Show of hands. Obviously. So, the great philosopher Plato once said that music gives soul to the universe. It gives wings to the mind. It gives flight to imagination, and it gives life to everything. And no wonder why we all have fallen in music. But you know what? The next speaker is someone whose love for music has changed his life entirely. And that's why we are here to welcome Rodolfo Vega, who is going to tell us the impact that this magical music had on him and his life. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Rodolfo with a round of applause.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. If you all can hear me clap once, if you all can hear me clap twice. Thank you very much for your applause, I really do appreciate it. But no, my story actually has nothing to do with the major that I'm actually studying right now. My name is Rodolfo Vega. I'm currently a senior here at Texas State. I'm majoring in criminal justice. The story, like I said, that I'm going to tell you is about my career and my journey through mariachi music. Growing up, I was raised in Morgan Hill, California, which is completely different than Texas, obviously, because not only are the prices different, but everything's bigger here in Texas, or so I've been told. But when I was raised up there, I really was just playing sports. Majority of the time it was, soccer. But my grandma always said that my start to music really came in whenever I take out all her pots and pans and start banging on them with spoons. But after that, once I kind of developed that little knack for music, after listening to my grandmother, listening to mariachi music so much, I decided, I want to learn the violin. So my mother, she put me in classes with the San Jose Symphony, and I began to pick up the violin, and I picked it up pretty quickly, surprisingly. But it wasn't until maybe a little bit later after that, I really got tired of classical music. I apologize for all you classical music players if y'all are in here. But I got real tired of it really fast, so I wanted to jump into mariachi music. But the thing is, with mariachi music, it's very hard to find music for it because it's, I guess you could say, an oral tradition. It's something that you have to listen to play, or you can't really have, I guess, resources like y'all have here in Texas, like having high school mariachi. I didn't have that luxury or that ability to do that back home in California. Out there, our only bands that we had in school is marching band. We were lucky if you had an orchestra or something like that, but mariachi wasn't really existent because there's not that many people that like that out there. So it took me a lot of trial and error of, going to different mariachis and saying, hey, I really want to learn, can you teach me? All of them would just shrug me off and say, you're just a kid, you don't, why would you play mariachi? And then, it was a lot of closed doors. And it wasn't until this one time my family and I went to a restaurant in San Jose. It was called El Jardín. They had a mariachi out there, and I remember my mom had pushed me to speak to the director of the group, and his name was Felipe Garcia. And I had said, hey, I really want to learn mariachi. He goes, well, you know what? I'll give you lessons. Meet us on Saturday in the morning, and I'll start teaching you from there. So I was ecstatic that morning. I got up super early just to run to class, with my mom. And, I guess I could say this all started right there. I started playing the violin and mariachi, and I loved it. But then I got tired of violin. As you can see, there's a process here. But I got tired of the violin, and I wanted to pick up the guitarra, which is the big bass that you see right over there. And that's my primary instrument now. But like I said, I didn't have the luxury of being able to play in high school compared to, a majority of high schools here in Texas. So after I started playing guitar, I started creating some really good relationships with the chavos, as we call them, or the members of the mariachi community out in California. And I would start to play with them, I'd start to get to know with them, and just create these really good bonds. And after that, it started to come out, consistently. I'd have work every single weekend. Thank God I had work, because if not, then what would I be doing? I'd be at home practicing. Do I really practice? Not that much. But it just took a lot of time to create those relationships. But I would say the biggest blow that I had to my career was in fall of 2019. And that's actually when I moved to Texas State. I had heard about Texas State University through the mail, actually. I had applied to a bunch of colleges out in California. I applied, at Stanford. I've also applied to Harvard and Yale. And while I was waiting those responses, I got a letter in the mail from Texas State University. And I would just kind of push it off on the back burner. And I never really thought of coming here, because I figured, what would I do here in Texas? But after, some time passed, I kept getting more and more letters. These people kept sending me so much mail that I was like, you know what, let me just actually take a look at it. And sure enough, I remember I opened one letter, and it was an actual handwritten letter. It wasn't one of those printed ones that looks handwritten, it was actually handwritten. And it was someone from the university saying, we see your academics, we would love for you to, at least take a look at our university. And from there I said, you know what, sure. I looked it up online, I thought, it looks cool, right? Here, apparently it's a good party school here in Texas. That's a plus, I guess, right? But after that, I just kept looking at it, and then I realized, you know what? I want to major in criminal justice. Like I said, it has nothing to do with music, but I still wanted to follow through with it. So I came to the university. I did not even know what the place looked like. All I had seen was photos online. And I told my parents, yep, I want to go to Texas State University. I'm going to major in criminal justice. And it was, I'll definitely tell you, the day that I got here was so exciting. Being on a university campus and, being able to say, wow, I'm really going to be a college student was super exciting. But as soon as my family left, I was hit with a really, sad episode, if you will. A lot of my friends, the majority actually, all the kids in my school stayed in California for, college. And I was the only kid, one of the only kids that actually went out of state. So when I moved here, I didn't have any family out here, I didn't have any friends, and I didn't know anyone out here. And it was obviously scary, because being new to a high school is one thing, but being new to a university in a different state, in a different part of the world, where the culture is completely different, was even more terrifying. So I remember I had seen one of the biggest reasons I chose Texas State was actually because of their mariachi program. And in that mariachi program, I said, you know what, let me jump into it, let me try it. And I went to go audition, and I had one professor, which is one of my favorite professors of all time. His name is Miguel Guzman. And he had said, hey, you're that kid from California, right? And I was like, yeah, how'd you know that? And he says, oh, well, we looked at the audition list and we saw you're from out of state. And he said, what part of California are you from? I said, oh, I'm from San Jose. And he said, oh, so you must know Juan Reyes. You must know these, people that I played with out in California. I was like, yeah, how do you know them? He said that he used to play in California a lot. So that connection right there made me so happy and so sad to know that, hey, there's actually someone who actually knows people, a mutual friend, if you will. And that was really exciting, but I remember when I got into the actual mariachi class, I was accepted to play on guitarón, but I later switched to harp. I was accepted into that class, and it was terrifying, because all these kids were all saying, oh, I came from Roma High School, or I came from, I think it's Couch, or all these different high schools here in Texas that I had never heard of before. And, oh yeah, our mariachi was a division, something. And I was like, I played at a mariachi that played at a restaurant every weekend. It was a completely different experience. And I had always thought that these kids, would excel past me. But I actually realized that I was at a pretty even level with the rest of them. And after that, it was just it was a bummer, because all these kids were different, and they were all specifically music students, but I was the only kid that wasn't. And I think that also set a little bit of a divide between us, was that, they would always hang out because they were always in the music building, but I was always in the criminal justice building, which is just a walk away, but it seemed like there was a massive wall in between us. And it wasn't until one day, one of my friends, his name was Angel, he had said, hey man, do you gig? And I said, yeah, I used to, play professionally back home. He said, okay, I want you to come to a restaurant with me. It's, Thursday night, come with me, we'll play, it'll be fine. So I went and played, and I had the time of my life. because that was the first time I had played since I had moved to Texas. Because like I said, I had not known anyone out here, so I couldn't put my foot in the door anywhere. And after I played with him, I met some great people there. Some musicians that I still play with actually today. And believe it or not, right after this, I got to run to a gig out in Austin. But these people are the people that I met that day. I'm still playing with them today. And I started to create these relationships with these people, which started leading me to more doors in San Antonio, in Austin. And now I can say, thank God, every single weekend I have work. But one of the greatest joys, I guess, of my actual path through mariachi was that same restaurant where I used to ask all these guys, hey, I want to learn how to play. And they'd always shrug me off. El Jardín in San Jose, California. I go back there sometimes on my vacations, and I'll get asked to play at that same exact restaurant. So to me, it's, I guess you could say, a trip, per se. It's crazy to think that I started there, and wow, I'm actually coming back and being able to play. Now I've met some great people here at the university, some students that, it's just a great, great group, and, we're all a great amount of friends. But obviously it took time to get to that point. And I had never thought that I would make it to that same point of having so many friends like I did back in California, having that same amount of friends out here. Mind you, I'm a criminal justice major, so music was never and has never been really an intention of mine as a career later on in the future. But knowing that in the event something happens, I can fall back on that, and I'll have the resources, the friends, and some people that I consider them like family now, out in San Antonio and Austin, everywhere here around Texas. That, if something ever happens, I can ask them. It's like a second family. That's why I'm super thankful that, me being a kid from California, not knowing anyone here in Texas, I have one of the biggest families here in Texas, which is considered the community of mariachi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rodolfo, for sharing that musical journey of your life. So, many of us have had insecurities in our life. Sometimes these insecurities pull us back from progressing because it just makes us feel inadequate or unworthy. But you know what? Our next speaker is someone who strived to get over her insecurity and prove that not only she is good enough, but she is more than enough. Let's welcome Kiara Regaledo to share an inspiring story.
Hi, I'm Kiara. So today I'm just going to be talking about how Texas State has truly impacted me and my life. I'm kind of going to use the series You on Netflix for reference. So if you haven't watched it, you're probably not a part of this generation. But if you have watched it, it's been out for a week, so season 3 is pretty good. So just as Joe Goldberg is like madly in love with Love Quinn, that's kind of my obsession with Texas State. I come from a really small town in West Texas. It's called Muleshoe. And growing up, I did not ever really think I was going to come to college. I'm a first-generation college student, and nobody in my family has ever attended. I have like 60 cousins and a lot of aunts, so it just didn't seem very realistic. But I wanted this like big dream to come true. Since the age of 6, I've played the piano, and every year while playing the piano, I got to compete in a music festival which was hosted at Texas Tech University. And from there, you could advance to the state level, which was here at Texas State University. So every year since the age of 6, I got to play in the music building and compete or perform for an outstanding rating. And if I advanced from there, I got to play in the theater right across from here. So with that, I was always super excited to come to Texas State. I thought it was the most magical place on earth. The same way you feel when you probably leave the country or go on vacation. This was my vacation. I thought it was so cool when I got to see all the cool college students hanging out by the river. And I thought it was cool that the campus even had a river here. I wanted to be that cool college student. I wanted to be able just to go to the river, considering West Texas does not have water, so it was really cool, and that's literally the only experience I wanted. I thought that's what college was about. So from there was my personal connection of playing the piano, and my family just seemed like, okay, Texas State is the school for you. Like, we've gone there every year. It's also the only school we've ever gone to, so I figured, why not? Like, I'm gonna go to Texas State University, and that was the biggest and most fun day ever, just finally accepting the realization that, like, I'm gonna be a college student, a cool college student. And with that came my freshman year. And freshman year is for everybody. I don't care if you had the best year of your life, you probably didn't. Freshman year is just not fun. With freshman year, I lived in Blanco Hall, and it was actually a different experience. I came here knowing one person, and that is my roommate and my best friend from home. She's actually sitting right over there. And with that, she would leave for her classes, and I stayed in my room crying every day because I hated it so much here. I was genuinely confused as to why I wanted to be a cool college student so bad, and I got here and it was horrible. Could not find any friends, and when I met my first friend, I later slowly started using an app called Bumble. And with Bumble, there's a BFF setting, and that's where I met a few of my own personal friends. I thought it was so weird and crazy that you meet people through an app, and you suddenly became friends. And it's still weird if you really process it and think about it, but it is new and different, and it's just something I thought I'd have to experience going through this college experience. So along with having Bumble and just having a horrible time, I got into a car accident right on campus. I was actually riding a bike, but I didn't realize I didn't know how to ride a bike. So as I was riding the bike down the hill right next to Jones, I didn't know how to stop. So I figured the only way to stop was to hit the car that was coming towards me. And I did that, and then slowly just stopped going to my classes because I used that as my biggest excuse as to why I couldn't attend. And I failed my first class. And I know this is being recorded, but I've never told my mom I failed that class. But I retook it and I made an A, so go me. But with failing that class, I thought, there's no way I can be in college. Like, people don't fail. Like, I've tried my whole life to just make it to college. I'm here and I failed a class. I thought that was unheard of. And then I met a lot of people who said they failed multiple classes. So then I felt better about myself. But with that, I didn't want to be here again. I came with this sudden realization that, like, maybe this place isn't for me. Like, how do I deserve to be a college student? There are people trying 10 times harder here than I am. And I didn't know what to do. I stayed here throughout COVID, and because I was here all alone, it was the loneliest time of my life. But I started using Bumble again. And this is not a Bumble ad. I just started using Bumble because I wanted to meet new friends. And with that, I got to walk around campus where nobody seemed to exist here. And I seriously felt like the main character. I was all alone, and I felt like I was in a movie, and I still feel like that when I get to walk on campus. So I definitely do think sometimes I am the main character. But with that, I just started falling more in love with Texas State again. I thought, this really is the school for me. And then I later applied for an ambassadorship with Victoria's Secret Pink. Victoria's Secret Pink has many programs on college campuses where they want to market to college students for their clothing wear. And I thought there was no way I was going to get that. Like, I'm a first generation college student, barely passed a core class that everybody seems to make an A on. And I just didn't think it was for me. And then I got accepted, which blew my mind. And someone reached out to me on Instagram and asked me if I wanted to apply to be a Bumble ambassador. In my mind, I was like, what? I use Bumble. Like, I get to make friends on Bumble, and somehow, like, I get the opportunity to apply. So I did. And I got that one too, which I was pretty shocked about. So it's kind of cool how I got to make that full circle of me not having friends, using that to make friends, and now I get to help others make friends. And then along with that came a new ambassadorship with Maybelline, and then another one with Kendra Scott. So along with all of these, I was just really overwhelmed. I still kind of am, but I'm really excited and genuinely just so thankful for all the opportunities I get. I truly get to represent Texas State in a way that these brands see and notice our university here on campus, and also in a way that I get to bring those kind of brands and names to Texas State campus. But more in a sense, I get to be a part of a bigger community here at Texas State, and I get to showcase to other people why I love Texas State so much. So after all of this, I sometimes believe I finally made it to that cool college kid status where I once saw kids hanging out at the river when I was 6 years old, and now I'm here and I get to hang out at the river. So that's my complete story of how Texas State has impacted me and how grateful I am to be here.
Thank you, Kiara, for sharing that story. I'm sure like everyone was able to connect with her somehow and sharing her feelings. So that was great. Thank you so much, Kiara. Here's a quote that I want to say. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever it is, just keep moving forward. Did that ring any bells in your head? I'm sure you must have guessed who it is. Does anyone want to guess who said that quote? Okay. This is the quote by legendary Martin Luther King Jr. And I have heard this quote said in my classes many times because this is a legendary quote which keeps us moving forward. And you know why I'm saying this quote right now? Because our next speaker is someone who is the perfect example of this quote. Despite of having various difficulties, he never stopped. He kept moving. And that's why we need to listen to his story. Please welcome Daniel West on the stage with a round of applause.
Good evening. So I want to take you back to March 2016. At this point, I am in my master's program here at Texas State in the Developmental Education Program. And I am at the height of, for me, performing academically. I grew up, I went to school for my undergrad at University of Texas, and I struggled there academically. If you're a terrible test taker, then you'll understand that, multiple choice tests just didn't work for me. When I finally graduated in 2010, I was at a real crossroads. And it was when I had originally graduated, wanted to be a teacher, but teaching market crashed, so I needed a job. And I worked for a couple years, and I came to Texas State. By the time at this March 2016 point, I had a 4.0. I was just blown away. But I was also having a lot of issues physically. I was really active, and I was having trouble with balance. I was having issues with pain up and down my spine. And it turned out that I had 2 severely herniated discs in my neck. And so in March of 2016, I had what's called an ACDF, or an anterior cervical discectomy and fusion. And as a result, of that surgery, I had a ton of reactions that ultimately left me with a lot more questions than answers. Doctors didn't know what was going on, and as a student, I just wanted to get back to going to school. I I was loving my program, and still do, but I did not understand what was going on. So I eventually started to dissect my problems, but I also finished my classes this summer, and I started in the fall semester of 2016 in the doctorate program while I finished up my master's. And all of this time, I finally found somewhere that, a material that I love. And, what I research is ways in which students seek out help, but why they seek out help academically. And what I found is that there's always an underlying reason. Well, for me, that underlying reason for getting help was that things just didn't add up. In the spring of 2017, ultimately, I had to leave school. In December 2016, I got diagnosed with a connective tissue disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And this is a connective tissue disorder that affects everything in your body, everything from your teeth, hair, organs, bones, ligaments, you name it. So, and it's progressive too. When I started after my first semester in the doctorate program in 2017, I had to stop in spring break. And ultimately, I had to leave because I had at least 1 or 2 spinal fluid leaks in my spine. And following that, it was just like one thing right after the other. The biggest support system I had was not just my faculty, and my professors. My professors were some of the people that really kept me moving forward. But I also had a huge support network. So as a student, that kept me focused. Matthew McConaughey said, as he said in his Oscar speech, there was always something he was chasing. So for me, I was always chasing this master's degree. And when after I got my spinal fluid leak patched up, then I had, we had to travel to different surgeons. Mine is in Charleston, South Carolina. And by the time, each time we went and had a surgery, I was saying, okay, I can get back to school. Nope. And there was just another thing. Just this past April, I had another neck surgery that had to fix the one before and fuse another level. So by the time I am here now, I have had 3 neck surgeries in the last 5 years. Now, put yourself in the place of a student. That can be really frustrating. So, along this time, I'm also having a lot of issues with hormone imbalance. If you've had thyroid disorders or low testosterone, then you understand how frustrating this can be. For me, I had severely low testosterone and another hormone called DHEA. And I also have, my body does not produce enough cortisol, which is your stress hormone. When all of those are pulled together, when I was trying to finish up the last bits of my master's, I wasn't getting enough blood to my brain to actively produce that higher level thinking that's necessary to produce and write. For me, that was devastating. Thankfully, the doctor that was treating me, I was not satisfied with. I changed to another doctor here in Austin, and one of the challenges we face is that we have to make the decision of, do we go with a doctor that's with insurance or private pay. I made the decision to go to private pay. Since April, I've done the point where I can write again. If you are in graduate school, you know how important that is. So to be able to write again, I feel invigorated and finally have the hope to succeed. So now I'm going to finish my master's this fall. I'm going to go back, be able to come back and work on my doctorate here at Texas State because I have a strong community, a fantastic faculty and support, and the drive to succeed. I don't know what better combination you can have to when you're you're going after and living your dream and wanting to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. That was so great to listen to your story. Friends, this has been a great experience because we get to listen to so many moving stories. We get to get an insight into their passions, their dreams, their struggles, tribulations, and achievements. So I know that all of us over here are going to take some valuable lessons out of this, and it's going to stick with us for a long time. So before we wind up, I just want to thank all the members of the University Star for making this event a success. Special thanks to the multimedia team for capturing this event. Thanks to the engagement team for promoting this event and reaching out to all of you guys. Creative specialist Michelle DuPoint for creating the programs, and the PR department for coordinating this event. We have Nadia, who is the PR director, and she has a few words to say before we wind up.
I just want to say thank you so much for coming out. It means a lot to me, to everyone at the Star, and to the storytellers. Thank you guys for supporting student media. It's really important. And we've worked really hard. I want to say thank you to my PR team. I think they left because they were to go get cookies ready for you guys after. But yeah, thank you guys so much.
And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for attending this event and lending your ears to us. This has been Rasika Gesti, and it has been my pleasure to be the MC for this event. I just want to leave you all with a message. We all are nothing but stories. You are a story, I'm a story too. And our stories are something that brings us all together and connects us with each other. So, and you know what? You have the power to write your own stories. So just keep writing and living your stories. And if you ever get a chance, just inspire others with your stories. Because every story is worth sharing. Thank you.